Hello everyone, welcome back to Electrified Outdoors. Today we're going to have a slightly different video. As you know, my goal here on this channel is to have a lot of fun, but also to educate the EV community. I've been driving EVs for a number of years now, about 9 years, and I've driven many different EVs, and so I have a lot of experience to draw on in educating other folks that may be new to EVs and how they work and ways to make your life easier in general. But today we're going to be taking a look at the Rivian app, and we're going to be walking through that. A lot of folks that buy Rivians, it may be their first EV, or even if they've had an EV before that, they may not be totally familiar with how to operate the app or the vehicle. So some of my videos are geared more towards those users. So when we first come into the Rivian app, we are presented with the vehicle. Now here you can see my R1T, and you have a menu over on the left, and if I tap on that, you can also see that I have an R2 reservation, and my wife has an R1S as well. So we have 2 Rivians and then 1 reservation over there. So this is how you switch vehicles. If you have multiple Rivians, then you can switch between them using the menu up here in the upper left. You can also add gear. So for example, if you have a Rivian charger, you can set up your charger from here, and then your Rivian charger will also appear in that list. Now, looking at my wife's R1S here, we can see a bunch of different things. In the upper right-hand corner, we can see the cabin temperature alert, and your notifications will appear up here in this upper right-hand corner. Some of the things you'll see are when the inside of the cabin is very hot. Hers is parked outside right now, so it is. You'll also see if you've left a door or the charge port or something like that open, you'll see a car icon there. You'll also see an icon there, I believe, if there's a software update or if the vehicle is asleep. But let's just tap that, and if we tap that, we can see that the inside of the vehicle is 113 degrees. It's a little hot, so it's notifying us that the vehicle is a little hot. The next thing we see is the state of charge currently, which is 68%. We see the drive mode, which is all-purpose. We see a graphic rendering of the vehicle itself. And then next we have our controls. Now we have lock and unlock, and you can see that it's black here for the lock. That means the vehicle is currently locked. And if we tap this button here, we can control a lot of different things. We can sound the alarm. We can vent the windows, we can open the hood, we can open the lift gate, and that's about it from here. Now, if I go over to the R1T, I'm going to have a couple little different options because it is the R1T. I can still sound the alarm and vent the windows and open the hood, but in this case, I can also drop the tailgate and open the right or left gear tunnel doors. So it's a little bit different on the R1T. But let's go back to the R1S here for a second. The next thing we can do is control our climate. Now this is going to be useful if you are preconditioning the vehicle. So let's say you're getting ready to leave the office or leave your home to go into the office, and it's either really cold or really hot in the vehicle. You can go in here to the climate. Now you can first quickly turn it on by touching the fan button, or you can tap the arrow here, and this is going to take you into the full climate menu, and you can turn on the defroster. Once the climate is on, you can adjust the desired temperature up or down. It will also show you in the app the cabin temperature, so you can see how much it's cooling off in the app. As far as the surfaces, these are the heated and ventilated seats. Note they're ventilated, not cooled. So if the inside of the vehicle is really hot, the seat ventilation is just going to recirculate that hot air. It's not going to actually cool the seats. So just be aware of that. That's something that commonly gets confused. So you can heat as well. So when we select cool, we've only got the 2 front seats, but if we select heat, we've got a number of different options. We can also do the 2 rear seats and the steering wheel from here as well. The last thing we can do is set up a schedule. So, for example, if you leave for the office every day at 7 a.m., you can set up a schedule here so that it has the climate at your desired temperature by the time. So when you go out to get in your vehicle at 7 a.m. to leave for the office, the vehicle is all ready for you. Now, this doesn't really save you any energy. This is mainly a comfort feature only. You hear a lot of folks talk about the vehicle is more efficient if you precondition. It's really not. It's just drawing that power from the wall. So it's using more energy. The only time it makes sense to do that is if you're actually leaving on a long road trip and it's cold outside and you want to heat the battery up. That can be helpful and increase your efficiency overall for that road trip. So let's go back here. Next, we have our energy limits. So this is going to be how you control your charging. And you can control this through the app. Now you can see that we have a charging limit set of 80%. And there's a slider here, so we can slide it down all the way down to 50% and all the way up to 100%. And I'm going to put it back down to 80. This can be a little tricky getting this exactly right. I think Rivian should provide a little up and down arrow to make that easier. But we can also see when we change the charging limit how that affects the range as well. And if we tap this little info icon, we can see what Rivian's recommended charging limits are. And the best way to preserve the life of your battery is a 70% daily charging limit. And what I tell everybody is, as long as you can charge to 70 and not run it below 20% on a regular basis, that's a good setting. If you find that you're going to run it below 20% on a regular basis, like every day, then you might want to set it up to 85%. The 100% you should avoid, and it's okay to do that on long road trips, but you don't want to be doing that on a regular basis. It will dramatically increase the wear on your battery. So we'll say got it. Next thing we can do is set a charging schedule. So in a lot of places, you have what's called a time of use electricity plan. So your utility provider will typically charge you less for your electricity during off-peak times. This is usually 10 or 11 p.m. to 6 or 7 a.m. You may also have incentives to do that. If you're not on a time of use plan, you may just get an incentive. Or you just may not want it to charge during the day. You may just want it to charge at night. You go in here and do that. This turns the schedule on or off at the top here. And then below that, we can set our time range, and we can also adjust it to a 24-hour clock if you prefer that. But this is going to be our start and our stop time range. So that's how we set the schedule in the Rivian app. We can also adjust the charging amperage from in here. Now, by default, it's going to negotiate with the charger and determine what the charger can supply. The maximum amperage the Rivian can charge at on a regular home level 2 charger is 48 amps. So that's the maximum. But you can set this all the way down to 8 amps. And a case where you may want to do that is if you're in a different location and you're not sure if there's other things plugged into the electrical circuit, or if you're at a campground and you're plugged into, let's say, an adapter that's only 30 amps, then you would want to adjust this down to 24 amps to avoid overloading the circuit there. Again, these little information icons, if you tap them, it will tell you a little more about that. It's going to apply to all scheduled charging sessions. So that's an important thing to note. The last thing is the location. So when you set a charging schedule, it's only going to apply to that particular location. So this is good because if you go on a road trip and you're charging at a public charger or in another place, you don't want it to not charge your vehicle. So the charging schedule is tied to the location. This would usually be your home or your office. And on here you can actually adjust the location. We can move this around and set the location that way. And then after you're done all that, if you're satisfied with your settings, you can hit save here. So a lot of control within the charging schedule. Last thing we can do under the energy screen is look at our charging history. And this is really a useful feature in here to look at your charging history. So you can see we're in the month of August, and we can go back and look at July and June and May. So it's very useful to be able to go back and look at all the charging history. But here we can see that the vehicle started charging at 10:29. It finished at 12:20 p.m. It added 22 miles in 13 hours and 51 minutes. Now, it should also show us the amount of kilowatt hours that the vehicle took in. Rivian does need to update the app. In a future video, I will show you that functionality, but for right now, it's not showing in the app. This is on an Android device. But the history is there. You can see all your charging history. Next is going to be security and access. And most of this is going to be controlled inside your vehicle. We can have the motion cam on or off. Right now you can see that the motion cam is on, but it's off at my home location. And I can't really change that from here. I can only turn it on or off. The next thing, and the more important thing, is the keys. So I can add keys and drivers from here. Now, this is not my vehicle. This vehicle belongs to my wife. So let me go back to my vehicle and just show you how it works there. So when I go into drivers and keys, since this is my vehicle, I can now go in and I can see I have 3 drivers here. And if I tap on myself, I can see which keys are assigned to me. You can see I have 2 key cards. This was a temporary key card assigned by the service center, a key fob, and my phone as a key. Now from here I can assign a key. So we can see this key is inactive. I can activate this key from here. I have a key card that's currently assigned to me. And if I wanted to assign that to another driver, I could reassign that key to one of the other drivers. And what reassigning it will do is it will tie that key to that user's profile. So for example, my wife is a driver on this vehicle. If I assign the key card to her, when she uses that key card, it will put the seats, the mirrors, and the steering wheel all in her preferred positions, which is very useful. So let's go back. The next thing we have is vehicle updates. So if we tap into here, we can see that there is an auto installation function now. This is something new. If I turn that on, just like my PC, I can choose a time of day that I prefer to install the updates automatically. And I can also set the automatic update feature to only happen when the vehicle's at home. This is useful because when the vehicle's updating, the updates usually take about an hour, and security features and access to the vehicle can be restricted during that time. So I highly recommend, if you choose to do the automatic updates, that you do them only at home. For me, I prefer to leave them off. I get a notification in the app when there's an update available, and I perform it at a time that's convenient for me. We can also see our current operating system. If I tap details, this tells me all the details about the current software update that's installed on my vehicle. And lastly, we have vehicle health. And in here we can see the last tire pressure reading. As you can see, my tire pressure is a little bit lower because the weather hasn't been quite as hot. I lower it in the summertime to keep it from getting too high when the temperatures get hot. I can see my current mileage and how that equates to my maintenance. And you can see that at 22,500 miles, my R1T is due for a comprehensive maintenance inspection. Okay, and then from here I can also request service, or I can see the maintenance schedule. And when I tap maintenance schedule, I can see every 7,500, every 3 years, and every 112,500 miles. The quad motor vehicles need to have drive unit fluid change, but otherwise, if you have a dual motor or one of the enduro motor vehicles, all you need is a coolant change at that time. And lastly, we can find parts here. So if we tap shop parts, it's going to take us to the Rivian gear shop. And we can just tap the X there to get back from that. So that's the vehicle health section. If we scroll further down, you can see the name of my truck. It's Hi-Yo Silver, which is something my mother always said to me, and that kind of stuck with me, so I chose to name the truck that. You can see my current odometer reading, and from here we have vehicle information. This is going to give us our model, VIN, the trim, all the information about our vehicle, and the software version. We can access the owner's guide for our vehicle, which is very useful. The owner's guide is going to have a lot of useful information in here. The only thing I wish Rivian would do with this, because the owner's guide is hundreds of pages long, I wish they would add a search feature on this viewer for the owner's guide. That would be much more useful. Because most of the time when you go in there, you're going in there to look for something specific. And the last thing we can do down here is share feedback. This is also something new. So if you have feedback for Rivian about a feature, if your vehicle needs service, if you have questions about the warranty, you can do a lot of different stuff from here by sharing your feedback with Rivian. Rivian is a very customer-centric company. That's the experience I've had with them and many others that I've talked to. And so I recommend for feature requests, or if you have complaints, come in here and share the feedback with them, because Rivian really does care what its customers have to say. So that's this part of the app that deals with the vehicle. So the next thing we have is the Rivian Trip Planner. So we'll tap on this little navigation icon in the center bottom of the screen here. And this is really, really a cool function. So you don't have to be sitting in the vehicle to plan out your road trip. So I'm going to say Disney in here. And I don't want to go to California. And we're going to say Walt Disney World. Let's say Disney's Animal Kingdom. And when I do that, it's going to give me a bunch of different things here. The first thing I'm going to do is tap on these little settings icons up here in the upper right-hand corner. And this is going to specify my charging settings. And for speed, I typically recommend 150 kilowatt plus. And then you can select the charging networks you like to use. I like Tesla, EVgo, and Rivian, but you can select from several others as well. This will hide certain things from the chargers that are available. Adapter needed. If you do not have an adapter for Tesla superchargers, you'll want to turn that on. I do, so I leave that off. If the chargers are all in use, you can turn that on. I typically do. Chargers that are not compatible, I leave that on. And if the chargers are out of order, The last thing you can do is, if the charger has a really low score, you can filter that out as well. So I like the filters that I already have, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. But when you're done in here, you can tap Apply Filters. This is for your chargers. So the next thing I can do down here is plan. So you can see this is 806 miles away from my current location. Now when I go into plan, this is going to allow me to plan a trip. I can save it, and then when I'm ready to go, I can actually send it over to my vehicle, and all I have to do when I get in the vehicle is tap Go. So the first thing I'm going to do with my trip in the upper right hand corner here is I'm going to tap the settings. This is going to bring up my trip preferences. I can say when I'm going to depart. So let's say we're going to depart tomorrow at, let's say 8 a.m. Okay. And so that solves that. And here again, we can modify our charging settings. So I like Rivian, Tesla, and EVgo. I'm going to set that. Avoid sites that need an adapter. I'm going to turn that off. Unfortunately, what the app does is it resets these preferences each time I go in. So if you're planning on using the Tesla, make sure you reset these settings each time you plan a trip. I'm going to say done. Preferred arrival range. This is purely up to you. I typically do 10%. This means that it's going to arrange my charging stops so that I arrive at my destination with that amount of charge. Now, if you don't have any place to charge that's close to your destination or at your destination, you may want to increase this so that you have some charge when you get to your destination. But for me and where I'm going, I'm confident with 10%. Drive mode. Now, in the quad motor Rivian, you have a conserve mode, which locks out the rear motor and only uses the front two motors. Most of you are going to be in all-purpose, especially if you have a dual motor. That automatically disengages the rear wheels or the rear motors for maximum efficiency. You can also choose other drive modes, and this will affect how the trip planner plans your trip. For now, I'm going to keep it in all-purpose. And lastly, something really cool is I can specify whether or not I'm towing a trailer. Now you can see I actually saved our Apex 245 BHS travel trailer in here. And you can see that Rivian detected that trailer weighs 4,500 pounds. And so it'll plan the trip based on the efficiency information it has for that trailer. This is really awesome if you're towing. I'm not towing, so I'm not going to select that. But I'm going to hit apply. And then lastly, I can add stops in here. So if I wanted to stop at the Buc-ee's in Florence, I can tap and slide that up. And so this will stop me there on the way. The only thing I wish Rivian would do here is put the stops above the destination automatically so that it adds it above the final destination. But I guess it doesn't matter. It's easy enough to just tap and slide them up. Lastly, I'm going to hit plan trip. And it will take a couple seconds to calculate the route. And once the route is calculated, I can go here to the map, and you can see all the charging stops that it's set for me. And if I go slide this up, I can see all the information about my trip. You can see that I'm going to need an adapter for these chargers, that blue icon. I can also see in green here the rating for that charger. This is really, really useful info because If a charger is rated really low, it may be a little concerning stopping there. So I can see that all of these chargers have an A, and it's going to tell me when I'm going to arrive at each one of these stops. And then lastly, when I go down here, I can tap this icon on the left. That's going to save this trip. So when I go out of the app and come back into the app, let's say I'm leaving next week, I can come back in here and my trip will be all here saved for me. And when I'm ready, I can tap on this second icon to send it to a vehicle. And because I have two Rivians, it asks me which one I want to send it to. I can send it to the R1T or the R1S, whichever one I choose. And when I hit send, it will pop up as soon as I get in my vehicle, and all I have to do is hit go. Very, very useful. The last thing I can do if I want to edit the trip is I can tap the little pencil icon on the right, and I can edit all the settings or stops for my trip. Very powerful route planner. Highly recommended for you to use this to plan your Rivian road trips. It makes it much easier than trying to do it inside the car when you're getting ready to set out. The last thing we're going to do is take a look over here at the user section. Now from here, I have the option to manage my Rivian account. I can get in touch with Rivian service or the customer engagement center or the gear shop or orders, whatever. I can get in touch with them here. You can see I have a new message that's probably from service. I have a mobile service coming up soon. Rivian service. So in here I can track any service appointments or requests that I have open. I can also add a request, and I can select which vehicle the request is for, and I can add the issue. And Rivian really likes when you add photos or videos, and it really helps them know what's going on. I'm going to exit without saving here. And then if it's safety related, you can give them a call as well. I can also see my past service invoices from here. And then if I tap Get in Touch, I have three options. I can message the service center from here, which is really cool. I can call Rivian service, and I can also start a chat session. So it's nice that you can actually message the service center directly. I think that's something fairly new. We have roadside assistance here at the bottom. So if I tap that, I'm not going to do that right now, but if I do, it'll bring up my phone app, whether I have an Android or an iPhone, and it'll automatically populate it with the Rivian roadside assistance phone number. So if you're stuck on the side of the road, you can easily get to Rivian Emergency Roadside. Last thing we have here is tools and resources. We have frequently asked questions and various different articles here. Hop in the R1T, hop in the R1S, etc., etc. If you guys found this information useful or helpful, go ahead and hit thumbs up. That way other people searching on YouTube will be able to find our videos easier. As always, folks, remember to subscribe, and then when you subscribe, if you hit that bell, you'll never miss out on any future upcoming content. As always, we thank you guys very much for watching.